Hot on the heels of my previous video about the Gemini from Planet Computers, I say because I'm actually filming the intro to this video the very same night that I wrapped up the video about the Gemini, I have a video about another device for you today. It's been a good number of years since I've actually gotten hands-on with a Blackberry device. I used to work for the state of Kentucky and we were issued these little weird-shaped Blackberries that had keyboards and everything. This was long before the common days of smartphones. Blackberry's changed an awful lot in the last few years, and I was kind of curious to see what they were like nowadays. If I remember correctly, I think TCL, Tickle, whatever company name that is, I think they're the ones actually manufacturing the new devices, but one way or another, the name Blackberry is still being slapped upon them, and so, in front of us here today, we have the Blackberry KEY2. This was sent out to me for free to take a look at from Blackberry, so let's open it up, let's take a look at it, maybe I'll use it for a few days and let you know what I think about it. So just in case you're curious, in case you haven't read up on it, because honestly, before they reached out to me, I hadn't read a whole lot about it myself. The Blackberry KEY2, as you can see here on the front, it's a device that has a screen, a physical keyboard, it has 64 gigs of storage with 6 gigs of built-in RAM. On the back you can see 4G LTE Cat12, a 4.5-inch IPS 1620 by 1080 display. It's a very weird aspect ratio. It has an octa-core 64-bit Snapdragon 660 processor, so obviously not the high-end 835, 840, 845. It's been a while since I've read about the specs of these things. I've been kind of out of the game for a little bit. It's a 660, it's an octa-core, it should get the job done for a lot of people. Rear camera, dual 12 megapixel autofocus camera, a wide and a tele lens. Front camera is 8 megapixels, again 64 gigs plus 6 gigs of memory, storage plus RAM, and a 3500 milliamp hour battery running Android, and I seem to remember seeing that it was Android 8.1 online, but we'll check on that. So let's just open this up and take a look at it. Open. There is the phone. That's a pretty beefy looking phone. And actually, very solid feeling. Cold metal around the outside. Can't really feel the back because it does have a sticker on it. We'll come right back. This says that it's the documentation and the SIM removal tool. SIM removal tool, documentation. Welcome to your new Android smartphone. Quick start guide, different languages, and a limited warranty, 12 months. You get a pair of earbuds along with it, a USB Type-C cable. That is USB Type-C to Type-A. Am I saying that right? Is it A or B? Old style USB. Still really good to have. Then a USB wall charger, which you may not be able to read on there. It says down here at the bottom, 5 volts at 3 amps output, 9 volts at 2 amps, or 12 volts at 1.5 amps. So a 25 watt charger, presumably for Qualcomm Quick Charge. Although I seem to remember those being slightly different voltages. Take a look at these headphones while I'm in here, these earbuds. Just see if they're any good, because I never really do that. Well, just sticking them in my ears, they block out a lot of sound, and they're staying in pretty well. I've been using a lot more earbuds now that I've started a new job. I'll just take them along with me, and if I want to listen to music or something, plug them into the laptop, plug them into a phone if the phone has a 3.5mm jack. Very convenient. So these might actually end up in my work laptop bag. We'll see if they're any good. And they did come with some spare ear tips. And finally, back to the phone itself. This looks to be a sticker on the front, so we'll go ahead and peel that away. And peel the sticker on the back away. Ooh, that's satisfying. So here you can see the back of the phone, that dual rear-facing 12 megapixel camera with LED flash. And actually it looks to be a dual tone LED flash, Blackberry branding, and it's got a very nice rubberized texture on the back. Feels extremely solid. I mean, like I said before, I've had a couple of Blackberry devices when I used to work for the state, and this definitely feels premium like those devices. It feels solid. The metal build around the outside, I'm liking that in the hand. The keyboard, that old style Blackberry keyboard. Very clicky, but not loud. I'll obviously have trouble typing on it, but I don't know, I like that. Around the outside, we've got the SIM card slot here on one side, USB-C on the bottom with speaker. I don't know if it's dual speakers, but it does have dual grills. On the other side, we have the volume rocker, what appears to be the power button, and a dedicated button for something. We'll have to see what that's for. And then on the top, 3.5mm jack and what appears to be the ambient microphone, noise canceling microphone perhaps. And given that the SIM card slot is on the side, I can only assume this back cover does not come off. And I'm pretty much okay with that. I really like the texture of that. It doesn't add as much grippiness as I would kind of like for it to, but it does have a good feel in the hand. The whole thing feels just like a tank. So let's hold the power button and see if I can get it to come on. I think this is the power button. And it buzzed very briefly. Again, that old familiar kind of Blackberry style buzz that I remember so much not enjoying. Get that message on your Blackberry when you're at home with the family and you know there's trouble. But at least this time, I'm not putting work stuff on this. This is not a work device, which means that I don't have to fear the buzz anymore. But there's your startup animation. Just holding this in my hand for a couple of seconds, I'm convinced that I'm going to be hitting this bottom button on the side a lot, just because where my hand fits, the way that I'm kind of holding it, that's where my finger generally tends to rest. So whatever that is, let's hope that it's not something that's going to take a whole bunch of photos or trigger off phone calls or something. I don't know. But anyway, here is the traditional Android setup. We don't have a SIM card in or anything, so we'll hit start. Connect to a mobile network. If you have a SIM, insert it now. And actually, since I'm just finishing up the other video, let me go ahead and use the SIM tool, and I'll put my T-Mobile SIM in here. And actually, kind of as expected, you do have a micro SD card slot as well as a nano SIM. So I'll go ahead and put my SIM in there, stick it into the phone. Don't have a micro SD I want to use in this at the moment. And it immediately detected I was on T-Mobile and told me that, so I'll hit OK. It's gonna just use the T-Mobile APN settings. It asks if I want to copy apps and data or set up as a new device, so we'll set it up as new. Connect to my Wi-Fi network. Oh, that's interesting. You use Alt, and then the numbers are right here. It's like a 10 key on the keyboard itself, right on the left-hand side. That's kind of neat. It is gonna take some getting used to typing on here, but the keyboard is very comfortable. And there's a little raised nub on the D. It's kind of hard to feel it though. But just typing my email address in, that could have gone a lot worse. And after realizing that there's both an Alt and a Shift and making sure I had the right one, I was able to get the password typed in. Now, two-factor authentication. Oh, and that's a new one. That's really interesting. Fingerprint sensor on the spacebar of the phone. So locate the fingerprint sensor. Let's start. Oh, that is amazing. Not that it's like super new and innovative, but I haven't seen one in a spacebar before, so it's pretty cool to me. You don't actually have to press down, you just touch it lightly. And a minute later, we're back. We're ready to assign the EULA, the license agreement. Yeah, okay. And we're complete. And it's gonna do a quick walkthrough. So this is the BlackBerry launcher. You can organize your space. There's pop-up widgets. If an app has an indicator, you can swipe up or down on the app to open a widget. There's a productivity tab you can swipe in. You tap down here for apps. A universal shortcut key, that's what this is. Press this and any letter key to configure a shortcut. With shortcuts, you can launch any app or perform an action. That's kind of cool. And so here we are. So if I swipe over on this little tab, let's see what pops out. Swipe the tab at any time to display your newest messages, events, and more. Productivity tab, skip intro, nah. Plan your day at a glance, customize settings, add widgets to it, swipe back when finished, and app permissions. Okay, allow it to access contacts, okay. And make and receive phone calls, SMS, calendar. This needs access to pretty much everything, but it's gonna be managing it, so presumably that's what it's for. So swipe over, there's settings button, and it looks like just another launcher pretty much. Just different things to do in here. Interesting, I don't know if it's a way that I would actually want to use the phone, but it's nice to have it there as an option, pretty easy to get to. See, these have dots under them, so I could swipe up to see what they are. Chrome bookmarks, Chrome search, swipe up on that one. BlackBerry Hub Plus service permissions, I don't want to do that right now. Calendar, you select the widget. So apparently that's to select the widget, not to actually see things inside of it. And I keep getting notifications. I need to turn the volume down. There we go, silent mode. So it mentions Wi-Fi calling is not ready. DTEC rating is fair, security features, so there is a built-in security service from BlackBerry. Learn more in preview, power center to get the most battery life. We are currently at 41% battery out of the box. New keyboard extension, new SIM card detected, and it's doing a bunch of updates. In terms of what actually came pre-installed, just because I was curious, we've got a bunch of apps, but let's see if I can go just alphabetical by scrolling down a little. So BBM, I've not used BBM in a lot of years. I'm curious if people are still using it. Traditional apps, calculator, calendar, camera, Chrome, clock, content transfer. That'll be hopefully useful if I wanted to transfer from my Note, for example. Docs and download. DTEC, that's the security app. Duo, I've not used Duo, I'll admit it. I haven't had a reason to. Hub and Locker, Notable, Password Keeper, Privacy Shade, Redactor. So realistically, I mean, obviously this is not locked to one particular carrier or another, so you wouldn't expect there to be a whole lot of bloatware built into it. But basically what you get is a pretty stock Google experience with a lot of BlackBerry apps on top of it, a lot of security related, sort of almost enterprise friendly apps built into it. And obviously you can extend that, you can add your own stuff to it because it is Android. You can just go to the Play Store, get whatever you want. I do remember a time where a lot of the phones that I got my hands on did not have Google Play services. That was a different time, kids. Let me put on my old man hat and get my walker. Lots of updates to do though. But anyway, I think what I'm gonna go ahead and do is let this device charge, let this get all the updates done, spend some time with it, and I'll give you sort of my first impressions of it after having used it for a day or two. I don't want to give a full thorough review on it, but I also don't want to just use it once and say, go buy it now. I do think the pricing on this is about $650 here in the US if you're interested in picking one up. But again, I'm going to go ahead and start using this as my secondary device. I've got the iPhone in one pocket and an Android phone in the other pocket. That's just how I live. And for the last few months, the Note 8 has actually been in my second pocket simply because Samsung Pay is amazing. So I'm kind of curious if there's any payment solutions on this and how they'll work, because obviously they're not going to be Samsung Pay. So we'll have to find that out too. So we will be back very soon. And we're back. It's been a couple of days and I've been using this device as my secondary, my backup phone, if you will, but I've been using it for an awful lot of things. And I wanted to go ahead and give some initial thoughts and impressions on it, not a long-term, thorough, in-depth anything, just my thoughts. And apologies in advance for this shirt. It's probably not going to look terribly great on camera, but it's what I wore today, so I wasn't going to change. But before I forget, the earbuds that were included with this phone, the Blackberry branded earbuds, actually sound really good, surprisingly good for a pair of 3.5mm included with the phone earbuds. I'm definitely going to be hanging on to these and using them in my work laptop backpack. But for the device itself, first off, obviously the fingerprint sensor. I didn't even know that it was really a thing. I didn't know a whole lot about this phone coming into it, but the fingerprint sensor is absolutely excellent. I mean, maybe you can see it here when it works. There we go. If you hit it just right, if you get your finger where you've set it up before, it works very reliably. It works pretty quickly too. It takes just a second for the screen to come up, but it does work, and I've been pleased with it so far. The screen itself, it's a bit of an odd aspect ratio. It's like 1600 by 1080 instead of 1920 by 1080, which means that things are in a very odd ratio. So if I open YouTube, for example, just a video that I had playing earlier from the Vlogbrothers, you can kind of see there's bars on all sides of it. And that's not bad, but again, you've got a phone that's this size, but you're only able to use that much of it for actual content. A little bit of a bummer, but again, you're probably not buying a phone like this, one with a physical keyboard, to watch media. I tend to use all the phones that I have on hand for watching media, so that's just me. In terms of the speaker, as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't sure if the bottom-facing speakers were actually both speakers or if one was one. As it turns out, of these two grills that are on the bottom of the device, this one is a speaker, this one is not. I'm guessing there's a microphone hidden away in here. With a lot of the newer devices, this front-facing speaker is also a stereo speaker, and it's just not on this one. And as maybe you can hear there, the speaker gets kind of loud. Don't want to play too much of that. That's Deadpool. It gets kind of loud, but it does also kind of distort at the highest volume. So again, not a device that I would be buying and expecting to use for media consumption. In very much the same vein, how I use a lot of smartphones as a camera. I did use this one as a camera just a little bit, and I took a few pictures outside, which I'll go ahead and show up on the screen here. I also did a little bit with video, and just for a quick test, this is a look at the rear-facing 4K 30 frames per second video from the Blackberry KEY2. This is in my very bright studio lights, so this should be one of the more optimal conditions. So just take a look around, see if there's any shakiness to where I'm hand holding this, if there's any graininess, see how the audio sounds. That's about it. And this is not going to look quite right, but it is 1080p 30 frames per second video from the front-facing camera on the Blackberry KEY2. From looking at the screen, it doesn't look all that bad, and after watching the video back of the 4K video I just did, it didn't look all that bad either. It's probably a little grainy, especially in the darker areas, but that's just kind of cell phone quality video. But again, let me know what you think. Again, the 1080p in this 4K project isn't going to look quite right, but there you go. Let me just say that the camera app is very, very odd. It's the Blackberry camera app, and just to quickly go through it here, the button at the bottom here is to take photos. The button to the right of that looks like the same button. If you hit it, you can change the mode. You can go video, portrait mode, scanner, slow-mo, pano. I've spent most of my time in the photo and video modes. The portrait mode, you would kind of expect that to work on both the rear-facing and the front-facing. After owning the newest iPhone, that's kind of just what I came to expect. It was wrong. So if you have it set to the front-facing camera like I do, and then you hit portrait, it's going to go ahead and flip it back around to the other camera, but it is using the 2 times the telephoto, which means it's incredibly zoomed in. We'll zoom back out. So if you wanted to do a selfie portrait, it's just not going to work. That said, the portrait mode didn't seem to make that big of a difference. It's nice looking, but again, I haven't spent enough time with it to have a thorough, real in-depth opinion on it. Maybe I can do a separate video about the camera if you want to learn more about it. The other bit of weirdness to it is with the video mode. So if I go ahead and switch over to video mode, get it turned appropriately, you might be able to see over here on the side, probably can't, it's kind of hard to see. It says 4K 30 frames a second. If I click on it, 4K 30 is the top resolution. It goes to 1080p 60 and 720p 30 and all of those options. 4K 30 is the highest you can go though. If I switch over to the front-facing camera now though, click on it again, it's 720p 30 frames per second. So coming at this from an end user point of view, if I'm filming something in front of me at 4K and then I want to switch to the selfie camera, you would think using the highest resolution that I would want to go to whatever the highest is on the front facing as well, but it's defaulting back to 720/30 for some reason. If I go ahead and change it here manually to 1080/30, it's giving me error messages about video stabilization. Anyway though, 1080p 30, if I switch back over to the rear facing camera, 1080/30. So the 4K 30 frames per second that I had set earlier is now lost because I switched the front-facing camera to 1080/30. I'm actually curious, I haven't tried this yet. 1080p 24 frames per second. If I switch over, it's still 1080p 24. So I can only assume that it's switching to the highest common frame rate that they support, except the front camera doesn't support 4K. But why would it switch it to 720p 30 frames? It's just confusing to me. That's something that can be fixed with software updates, so it's not really that big a deal, and it's not something that most people are going to be affected by, I would assume. I would definitely be highly affected by it if I were using this as my primary device, simply because I do tend, when I'm filming with a phone, to have that 4K video on the rear facing and then occasionally switch to front facing to be able to film myself and family and stuff. So to find that half of my clips are 720p 30 when the rest of them are 4K 30, I would be very disappointed. So that's that. In terms of the actual performance of the phone, just everyday usage, I use this for a lot of email, a lot of general messaging. I tend to use the Google apps for those things, so Google Hangouts, Gmail. However, there is a built-in Blackberry Hub app. I didn't really use it. I had it there. It automatically integrated all of the stuff from my Google account, as well as like messaging and phone calls, and that was kind of cool, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want to be able to see all of that in one place. I have, however, heard people say that they do want it, so that's a great feature. There are people that want it. I'm just not the one. And in terms of the actual performance, other than everyday stuff, the only games that I've tried on here are Pokemon Go and PUBG. I'm not a PUBG player, so this was actually my first time trying it. PUBG did not play particularly well on this. I put it at the lowest settings and it was kind of playable, but again, you've got this large section over here that is keyboard, so when you're trying to use two fingers on the screen, that's a relatively small space, and you're having to navigate around that keyboard, which makes it kind of awkward. So maybe not the best for gaming. So at this point, I've sort of narrowed it down that not the best for media consumption, not the best for gaming, not the best for content creation. So who is this device for? Well, as I mentioned before, it has a really nice keyboard, very nice for typing, very clicky. I definitely appreciate the keyboard on this. The built-in Blackberry apps, enterprise-friendly, messaging and communications-oriented. That's who I think this is for. Someone who wants to be in constant communication, who's always sending those text messages or emails. That's the kind of person this is definitely a good choice for. For somebody who's very screen oriented, for someone who's very content heavy, kind of like myself, this may not be the best option, but that's probably where I'm gonna go ahead and wrap the video up, because again, this is very much my 2-day impressions of using this as a backup phone. If you'd like to know more about it, if you want me to spend more time with this as a primary device, definitely let me know down in the comment section below. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for today. Thanks so much to the people at BlackBerry for sending this out for me to take a look at. I definitely appreciate it. Thanks to you guys for watching. I'll put a link or a bunch of links to where you can find this because it's now readily available, I think. But thank you guys as always for watching. By the time this video goes up, we should be over 100,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much for the constant support, for subscribing to the channel over the last 8 years. I've been making YouTube videos for 8.5 years now. So I definitely appreciate you guys sticking around, helping me get to this milestone. And hopefully we'll have a long future ahead of us. And hopefully you'll stick with me for that. So we'll see you again real soon. Bye guys.